30 years ago, Atlanta was the center of the world. Glavine on the mound winning the series in 95, Ali lighting the torch at the Olympics in 96, Outkast on the radio. Now, I wasn't here yet. I was finishing high school in Lakenheath, England, watching from the other side of the world. But I was locked in, and I'm like, that's where I need to be. So I moved here. 5 years later in 2001, I rented my dream loft in Cabbagetown at the old Fulton Cotton Mill, which at the time I thought made me incredibly cool. But it turns out elevator life is mostly just inconvenient. Anyways, I went into real estate with my brothers that same year, and I've been here for all of it ever since. Every boom, every bust, every cycle this place has been through. I'm Joshua Keene. My co-host Stephen Scholl is here with us. This is Keene on Atlanta. And in all of those cycles, here's what I've learned. There are decades where nothing happens. And then there are months where decades happen. And this is one of those months. Even though we all know that renderings never quite match reality, right now, there are cranes everywhere in this city. Not announcements, actual construction, shovels in the ground. And that's because exactly 30 years after the Olympics showed the world what Atlanta was becoming, we invited everyone back to the world's biggest sporting event, the World Cup. We're hosting 8 matches, including a semifinal, which is kind of a big deal. And right now, hundreds of thousands of visitors are pouring through this city. And in about a month, they'll all be gone, just like that. So what's left when they leave? It's the same question Atlanta's been answering for 150 years. Look, we're not perfect. We've torn down too much, sprawled out too far, made decisions that will take generations to recover from. But we keep building anyway. And right now, we're building a lot. So today, we're taking you through 5 major projects reshaping the future of this city. Not just because the World Cup is here, but for the decades that follow. And my personal favorite from the list, I'm saving that for last. So stick with us because first up, we have the one with the most zeros attached to it. Centennial Yards, roughly $5 billion right here in downtown Atlanta. Now, if you've been around here for a while, you know the reputation downtown has had. Empty after 5 o'clock. And we've been hearing that it's finally going to turn around for like 3 decades now? So the actual site, this stretch of downtown, we call it the Gulch, and it sits something like 40 feet below street level, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. For decades, it's basically been parking lots and tailgaters on game day. But every few years, somebody would float a proposal, fancy renderings, a press release in the AJC, and then nothing. Now, part of the reason is we're not building on flat land. We're building over active freight rail lines. Some of the busiest in the Southeast run right through here, underneath everything. So engineering-wise, this is more like Hudson Yards in New York than anything Atlanta has ever attempted. But the real issue is never logistics. It's that nobody was willing to put the money behind it. So what changed? Well, the story I keep hearing is that Tony Ressler, the Hawks owner, was looking out at the Gulch one day and asked somebody, what is all that down there? And when they explained the whole situation, he basically said, I want that. I want LA Live there. Now, if you've been to LA Live, you know exactly what he was picturing. And now here we are, 50 acres right here in the heart of downtown, which is a lot of space when you're talking about a city center, all under construction. This is one of the largest urban developments happening anywhere in the country, not just Atlanta, anywhere. And if you haven't been down here in a while, look, I've seen enough of these things come and go that I almost don't want to say this out loud, but this one feels different. There's stuff open and operating, people living here, restaurants running, hotels taking guests. After all of those years of proposals that went nowhere, this one is actually happening. Now, one of the first things built down here is a hotel called the Phoenix. The Phoenix, if you're not from around here, is Atlanta's symbol. Sherman burned this city to rubble back in 1864, railroads, factories, all of it. And Atlanta looked around at the ashes and said, okay, let's run this back. So the hotel sits on what we call Mile Zero, the exact spot where the Western and Atlantic Railroad lines ended. This is basically where Atlanta started. So we've got a phoenix rising where the city began. The development itself, Centennial Yards, echoes Centennial Olympic Park, built for the Centennial Games in 96. And now 30 years later, we're hosting the World Cup at this exact location. We're not being subtle about the symbolism here, and I kind of love that about this city. So what's actually happening here right now? Hotel Phoenix, which I mentioned, opened in December. First guests started checking in right before the holidays. The Mitchell, the first residential tower, something like 300 apartments, people are living there now. Top Golf is open, while Leap has a tap room, really good beer, we're checking out. And yes, there's a Waffle House because, this is Atlanta. And here's what's coming. Some of it's confirmed, some of it I'm hearing through the grapevine, so timelines may move. Shake Shack is opening, first downtown location. Busy Bee Cafe signed a lease. If you don't know Busy Bee, it's been around since like 1947. This will be their third spot. Cosm is building an immersive sports venue. Now, they wanted this open in time for the World Cup, but they didn't even break ground until about a month ago. That's just how these things go sometimes. Anyways, Live Nation is also building a 5,300-seat concert venue. It's in the works for 2027, which, if you ask me, is a more realistic timeline. And right next door, not technically Centennial Yards, but right next to it, Signia by Hilton opened a couple of years ago. 42 stories, something like 1,000 rooms. Biggest ground-up hotel downtown has seen in 40 years. The place is packed right now with visitors from all over the world. Now, all of this sounds great, right? But Atlanta's relationship with downtown is a long one and not always a happy one. We're not like other major cities. Chicago has the Loop. New York has Manhattan. But until recently, what did we have? I mean, office buildings that empty out at 5, game day gridlock, and a pretty depressing Greyhound station. Centennial Yards is the biggest bet we've ever made that we can change that. That downtown can be a place that people actually want to be on a Tuesday for no particular reason. But here's the question. Do these destination developments actually work for locals? Because in my experience, big development can go basically one of two ways. It either becomes a real place that I want to hang out in, or it becomes a $5 billion billboard, like a tourist trap with a Shake Shack. And honestly, I don't know what this one will be yet. It could be really cool, or it could be, I don't know, like another Atlantic Station or something. If you've been down there, we want to know. Are you going back? Let us know in the comments. So that's Centennial Yards, roughly $5 billion. The World Cup obviously pushed everything forward. But the real test isn't whether it attracts tourists. It's what we make of it after they leave. And if any of this has you, thinking about where you want to be in the city, that's what we do. Email us at koa@keenplus.com or grab some time on our calendar. There's a link in the description. But stay with us because we're not even close to done. Literally across the street from Centennial Yards, we've got South Downtown. Completely different energy, completely different model. Steven's been spending more time over there, so I'll let him take this one.
So Joshua actually just walked you through $5 million in new construction over there. So come with me just for a minute. We're only crossing the street. So South Downtown doesn't necessarily announce itself. There's no huge sign. There's no welcome to the district moment. You just start noticing things. You've got a coffee shop with a line out the door at 8 a.m., a bookstore with people actually in it, a restaurant with a full patio on Wednesday afternoon, and you're standing there just thinking, wait, when did all this happen? Well, this neighborhood actually used to be the whole show, the commercial heart of Atlanta. We have hotels, banking, department stores, an urban center that felt alive. And then over the back half of the 20th century, it all sort of just died out. Then about 10 years ago, a German firm called Newport actually came in and invested more than $150 million over 7 years, assembling 56 historic buildings with the intent to bring it all back. And then a few years later, COVID hits, the war in Ukraine, inflation and interest rates spike. And by 2023, the CEO admits the vision was right, but timing was just all wrong, and the buildings fell into foreclosure. And then back in October, the same year, 2 guys from Buckhead showed up, David Cummings and John Birdsong. Those are the same guys who built Atlanta Tech Village. They came down here, walked the buildings, and what took Newport 7 years to pull together, these guys bought out of foreclosure in less than 2 months. It has the same DNA, just different owners. So what's actually there right now? Spiller Park Coffee's been open for a while. Thai Tate Kitchen, it's a Thai spot. It has become a neighborhood staple, actually. And Trinidad James opened an apparel store just across the street. And as the World Cup kicks off, several more restaurants are actually scrambling to open. We have El Tesoro, one of my favorites. It's a taqueria that's opening their 3rd location on the corner of Broad and Mitchell. We've got Broad Street Barbecue, and we also have Bottle Rocket Sushi Tavern, and then there's one called the Mule Train. The chefs named that restaurant after the civil rights era campaign Martin Luther King was working on just days before he was assassinated. And here's another cool detail. They actually bought the Friedman Shoes building for $7.5 million. That building's been there since 1892. It started as a Jewish social club, then became a hotel, then a shoe store for nearly a century. And that kind of history's just been sitting here. You just have to not destroy it in the process, which Atlanta, as we all know, doesn't necessarily have the best track record on. And beyond all that, Smorgasbord, the open-air food festival from New York and LA. is bringing a version to a parking lot down here. In Trinity Central Flats, it's going to be a 218-unit mixed income housing tower, which is going to be opening later this year. So as the World Cup brings hundreds of thousands of visitors to Centennial Yards, where do all these people go between matches? After the games, where are they going? But before now, most of them would just get in their cars and leave. But South Downtown is betting they'll walk across the street instead. And this sort of dense, walkable vibe is happening all over Atlanta right now. You've seen it along the BeltLine. Decatur figured it out a while ago, and Buckhead's still trying to figure it out too. And this area of town really does need it. South Downtown is where it's all starting. But both of these projects eventually run up against the same thing. 14 lanes of highway that have been cutting this city in half for 60 years. And that's next, the Stitch. And this one deserves its own episode, and we're eventually going to give it to you. But here's what you need to know right now. So before the connector went in, there were neighborhoods here: Buttermilk Bottom, Bedford Pine, and Auburn Avenue. And in 1956, Fortune magazine called it the richest black-owned street in the world. And 2 years later, they started building a highway right through it. And we call that segregation by infrastructure, and that is the history of this city. So the idea is to actually stitch it all back together, and that's literally the name, The Stitch. And the scale is actually pretty remarkable when I started studying this thing. It's basically, let's say, a deck over 14 lanes of highway, 3/4 of a mile from Ted Turner Drive all the way to Piedmont Avenue. And when it's done, that's going to be 14 to 17 acres of new park space. Well, right now, there's nothing but highway. We'll have green spaces, pedestrian paths, a performance pavilion, gardens, and they're doing this in 3 phases. Phase 1 is about 4 acres from one city block from Peachtree to Cortland, and that's the one they're actually hoping to break ground on this year, though that timeline has actually slipped a little bit before, so we'll see. But if everything holds, that first section opens around 2029 or 2030. So let's get to the money. They've actually secured about $50 million to move the design forward right now. They've lost about $157 million in federal funding last year, so that was actually a huge hit. But they're actually going to be piecing together a special tax district, basically the same model they use for the BeltLine and the Battery, and that's going to be allowing them to push things forward anyway. At full project, this is going to be ending up somewhere north of $700 million, and they're looking to 2036 for all phases to be complete. And the economic projections, and these are just projections, so take them with a grain of salt, it's going to be about $9 billion in economic impact and 4,500 new jobs downtown, which would be pretty huge. And you're asking yourself, has anyone ever done this before? Well, Dallas actually built something very similar. Clyde Warren Park, it is about 5 acres over a freeway, and it completely changed that part of the city. So the model works. The question is whether Atlanta can get it done too. Because right now, it's just renderings. There's nothing there but highway, and it's really hard to picture. But if this happens, if you could actually walk from one side of downtown to the other someday, if those neighborhoods that got cut off 60 years ago get reconnected to the rest of the city, that doesn't just change downtown. That changes what kind of city Atlanta is. We'll come back to this one when there's dirt moving. And when projects actually like this do move forward, that changes where people want to be. And if that's your situation, or if you're just curious about options, well, that's what we do. So email us at koa@keenplus.com or check our calendar in the description below. All right, next up, we have the Civic Center. And you've driven past this thing for a long time. It's just sitting there behind a fence over a decade now. This is actually Buttermilk Bottom. It's the same neighborhood we just talked about at the Stitch. And the Civic Center opened here in 1967. It hosted everything from concerts to conventions for almost 50 years. And then it just closed in 2014 and has just been sitting there ever since. And in 2017, Atlanta Housing bought this site from the city for just over $30 million. And now finally, things are moving forward. If you don't know where this is, it's right on the edge of Old Fourth Ward across the street from the Renaissance Park. It's 19 acres of land. Soon it will be 1.8 million square feet of development, somewhere around $1 billion of total investment. The ground actually broke in December, and the whole thing is being led by Atlanta Housing, not a private developer. And I think that actually matters in this situation. And at full build-out, you'll actually see around 1,500 apartments across 5 residential high-rises. Close to 40% of those are set aside as affordable, which I do hope is true. And there's also going to be a 10-story hotel, a 12-story office building, and a grocery store. The original performing arts building from the 60s, they're not tearing it down. They're actually going to be preserving it and turning it into a performance venue. And they're also working with Atlanta Public Schools on a performing arts high school on site. The school and the venue are going to be feeding each other, which is pretty spectacular. But the first thing going up is actually a $60 million senior housing building. It's going to be 148 one-bedroom units, around 600 square feet each. The building is going to have a rooftop deck, an open plaza, and a cafe at street level. And this is supposed to be opening in 2027 if everything holds. And they're actually going to be building for the seniors on fixed income first. You don't see that very often. Most developments lead with the profit and deal with affordability as an afterthought. And at groundbreaking, they actually blessed this land with buttermilk, which, okay, I realize is a little on the nose, but I kind of love it. And I think we can actually learn from how they're doing things down here. We're actually going to come back here when there's something to walk through. I'll let Joshua close it out from here.
All right, last one, the Atlanta Botanical Garden. If you've been, and I hope you have, you know it's one of the best things we've got. 30 acres of green space in Midtown, the kind of place that most people come back from and say, well, why didn't I know about this sooner? But if you want to go, you have to drive, park in a deck, navigate all the traffic around Piedmont Park, which on a Saturday, you know what that's like. We've all circled that block more times than we want to admit. And even though the BeltLine runs right through this part of the city, like right there, you can't actually get to the garden from the trail. There's no connection. Well, that's all about to change. The garden is adding 8 acres and building a direct entrance from the BeltLine. And this is the first time they've added acreage since the place opened up back in the 70s. I didn't realize that until I started digging into all of this. The footprint has basically been the same for almost 50 years. They're adding a new visitor center, water terraces, a beer garden, and another phoenix, 20 feet tall, visible from the trail. You know, that symbol just keeps popping up everywhere, which is kind of cool of us. But the BeltLine entrance is the big attraction here. Right now, getting to the Botanical Garden is kind of a pain. You make a planned outing of it. But once you can walk in from the trail, like bike over on a Saturday morning from your side of town and just wander in, it kind of stops being a destination and starts being somewhere we just all go. Now, the expansion clocks in at $150 million, and they're targeting a late 2027 opening. And from what I'm hearing, and I've been asking around, that timeline is actually holding. And look, unlike some of the other stuff we've talked about today, this one's not trying to correct 60 years of bad decisions. It's not confronting displacement or infrastructure that cut neighborhoods in half. It's just taking something people already love and removing the barriers. Because not every project has to be transformational, right? Sometimes the right ambition is just to make stuff easier to get to. I live on the east side of town in Oakhurst, and walking the BeltLine on the weekends is part of my routine. And the idea that I could just walk into the Botanical Garden because I've got some time on my hands, you know, to me, that's what makes a city feel like home. So next time you're on the east side, look to your left when you pass Piedmont Park. You'll see where they're clearing for the new entrance. 5 projects, billions of dollars of investment, decades of work ahead of us, and Phoenix is rising out everywhere we look. It's not subtle, but then again, this is a city that got burned to the ground and just started building the next thing. We've always been like this. Renderings don't always match reality, but lately, this city has a way of surprising us. I'm Joshua Keene. This is Keene on Atlanta, where you belong. Thanks for staying a while, and we'll see you on the next one.